name is Kamran Zare, and I'm a woodshop teacher here at Landrum Middle School in Spring Branch ISD, which is located in Houston, Texas. What we're going to do today is I'm going to explain completely all the parts of a drill press, and then I'm also going to demonstrate exactly how to use it, so that way if you're unsure how to use it or you need to take my safety test as one of my students, you're going to understand everything that you need to know to be prepared to take the safety test. The drill press that we're going to take a look at today happens to be a Powermatic model PM2800B. Okay, so this is a brand new drill press that's only been used for 1 year. So let's first take a look at all the different parts of this drill press, starting from the floor and working our way up. Probably not able to see this in the frame, but down at the very bottom is the base. This is what is actually touching the floor. This is what supports the entire machine. Coming up from there, you have this pole that comes up through the back, and that is called a column. Attached to the column is this flat surface, which is called a table. This is where your workpiece is going to be placed whenever you do your drilling. Part of the table assembly back here is a lever, or it's a clamp, that actually clamps the table in place so it can't go left or right and it can't go up and down. Once we release this clamp, we can actually turn this crank back here, and this crank will allow me to adjust the table up and down. So that is called the height adjustment. Now, attached to the table right now is a clamp. This does not normally come with this particular machine. This is something completely separate, but anytime you use one of these machines, you should be using a clamp, whether it be something like this or any other clamp that would actually fit around your workpiece. Coming up from the table, we have this thing right here, which is called the chuck. This is what holds onto your drill bits. In order for you to lock one of your drill bits into the chuck, you're going to need a key. And for me, I have just a magnet over here on the top body, and I've got the elusive chuck key, very similar to that crazy doll back from the 90s or maybe early 80s or late 80s. But this is a chuck key. This is what locks and unlocks the chuck. On the side where the chuck key is hanging, we have these levers here, which allow me to bring the chuck up and down, and this is called the turret handle. So all this does is raises and lowers the chuck down to the table. In the front, this big red button, we have the start, stop, or power button if you like. This one, if you pull it forward, it's on. If you push it in, it's off. So that way, this is a safety feature. If you get hung up in this machine and you get pulled into it, most likely your head's going to hit here or something's going to hit here, so it'll automatically shut the machine off. Above this power button, we have a display. Right now, the display is off. It is an LED display. We also have a light and a laser. I typically don't use the light or the laser, and the LED display will tell us the speed, the rotations per minute of the chuck. On this side, which you can see much better, we have this whole thing right here, which looks like it has a ruler, and it has two cylinders that look like they can slide up and down. This whole assembly is called the depth stop, and this allows us to be able to repeatedly drill the same depth hole over and over, and I'm going to demonstrate that later. And then back here, we have the speed adjustment, so this allows us to change how fast this chuck is spinning. If you're one of my students, and you're not just somebody out there on YouTube, if you're one of my students, you're not going to touch this. Just leave it as it is. We can adjust the speed of the drill press depending on what material we're using. So just a quick recap of all the parts without the explanations. Down at the base, we have the base. Or down at the bottom is the base. This is the column. This is the table adjustment clamp on the left. On the right is the table height adjustment. This is called a table. This is a clamp. This is the chuck. This is the chuck key. We have our power switch here, and this whole assembly right here is called the depth stop. Now, one other thing that you would need to have in order to use a drill press is going to be a drill bit. So here's just my box of drill bits. I'm going to pick one of these in order to demonstrate the whole process. All right, so now let's get in how to actually use this machine. First of all, before you use any machine in any wood shop or any type of shop whatsoever, the first thing you need to do is make sure you put on your safety glasses. Second thing you need to do is make sure that you take off any loose jewelry, anything that's dangling down, any rings on your fingers, something that might get hung up in the machine. You definitely don't want to be wearing that. You also need to tie your hair back if you have long hair, keep it out of your face, and also you want to keep it out of the machines. Of course, I don't really have that problem, so that's not too big of a deal for me. The next thing is if you've got any loose clothing, oversized shirt or anything like that, you need to make sure you tuck it in. That way it doesn't get hung up in the machine. Most likely, it's just going to get torn off and you're going to end up naked at the end of the day. And then the last thing is, something that I don't allow my students to do, is you can't wear sweaters, you can't wear jackets. We need to be clear from the fingertips to your elbow. That way nothing's going to get hung up in the machine. So now that we've done that, before we actually come to the machine, we need to have a plan as to what it is that we're going to do. Anytime we drill a hole, there's two specific things that we need to know. First thing we need to know is how big is that hole supposed to be? What is the diameter of the drill bit that we're going to use? I'm just going to randomly select something, but let's just say I'm going to drill a 1/4 inch hole. So that's going to be my size. The next thing that we need is we need a location. The location on our workpiece, which I'm just going to use this piece of scrap here, I'm just going to randomly select a location by placing an X right there. X marks the spot. But typically you would need a vertical measurement and a horizontal measurement to find your center point. Once we have those two pieces of information, I have a plan. I know that I'm going to drill a 1/4 inch hole into this X right here, and I want to drill from top all the way through. So since I'm going to be drilling all the way through, as soon as I get to this machine, the first thing that I need to do is I'm going to make sure it's off. Then I'm going to clear off the table to make sure nothing's in the way. But then I want to make sure that if I need to adjust this table, I might need to bring it up, I might need to bring it down, and I also want to center my drill bit into the center of this sacrificial area in the table because I'm going to drill all the way through. So, because I know that that's one of the first things I'm going to need to do before I actually turn on the machine or do anything, I need to get my drill bit in that chuck first. So I'm going to walk over here to my drill bit box. I'm going to look for the 1/4 inch bit. It is right here. Now, with the bit, you always insert the tail end of the bit, which is the non-fluted end of your bit. So I'm going to place this in the chuck. And right now, it seems like it's extremely loose. So this chuck, if you spin it by hand, you spin it one way, it gets wider. If you spin it the other way, it seems like these jaws tighten down on it. So what you're going to do is hold onto that drill bit, try to center it in the middle of that chuck, and sometimes you have to bend down to check to see if these jaws have clamped onto it in the center, and you're going to hand tighten it. That does not mean it's tight enough to actually use. Your next step is you're going to take the chuck key. You're going to insert the chuck key into one of these holes right here, making sure the teeth align from the chuck key to the chuck, and you're going to turn it as tight as you can clockwise. Now, if you happen to be one of my students, maybe this is a difficult issue for you, you can't turn tight enough, have somebody help you, somebody that can turn it a little bit harder than you can. That way we can make sure that the drill bit is locked in the chuck. After you've done that, you got to remove the chuck key. We never want to run this machine with the chuck key in the chuck. You'll completely destroy the key and the chuck. And we got to make sure that we put this back where it's supposed to be, because this thing is easy to lose. So I'm going to place it right here on this magnet so I know exactly where it is. Now, because we said that we're going to drill a hole all the way through, I want to make sure that this drill bit goes through the center of this sacrificial area of the table. And I also want to make sure that I don't have to turn this turret handle too much. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to see, okay, well, it reaches, but we can see that I'm really extending all the way down. I've got to turn this a lot. The less motion we have to do, the faster we're going to be able to go through this, but also the more likely we're not going to make a mistake. So what I'd like to do is raise this table up. What I can do is come over here, release the clamp. Now that I've released the clamp, I'm going to crank this handle up so I can bring this table closer to my drill bit. And I think that's a good enough space right there. However, whenever I do this, I also have the ability to kind of rotate the table left and right. So I can see that this is a good center point with my drill bit. So I'm going to come back and I'm going to lock this in place so it does not move. Once I have done that, I am pretty much ready to start drilling, except you'll notice there's no LED on. So even if I were to do this, it's not on. The reason why I do this here in my shop is just like everything in the world, nothing lasts forever. And whenever I turn this on, and the reason why I have it off is because I've got it connected to a ground fault circuit outlet. If I go ahead and bring power to that circuit, now it's on. But you can see why I don't leave this whole outlet on all the time, because with this light on and these lights on, it's not going to last forever. So when we're done with the day, I always turn the outlet off. That way we're not going to burn up these LEDs and this LED right here. Just one of my things. Now, once we've got that set up, we can see if I pull this out, it spins. It's telling me the rotations per minute up here. If I push it in, it stops. That's essentially what this machine does. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this X and I'm going to lower my drill bit, and I want the center of the drill bit to hit right in the center of the X, right there. Now typically I'd be standing in front of this machine with my back to you, but I'm standing to the side so that you can see exactly what's going on. With pressure, with the turret handle, I'm going to keep this drill bit placed down onto my workpiece. With my right hand on the turret handle applying pressure, I'm going to take my left hand and I'm going to clamp this down. Now, I do not want to clamp this with the clamping part close to the drill bit, because the chuck may come real close to it. So I'm going to try to keep it further away, and I'm going to lock it down. If this is the clamp that you, as my student or somebody else might have, is using, and it doesn't quite clamp, or you can't quite get it to hold just right, there's a thumb screw on the back of this clamp. You can loosen it, you can tighten it, but in this case, it's holding on. The reason why we do this, I want to have both of my hands free. I am not going to hold this piece of wood while I drill through. That's just not very bright. It's extremely dangerous. Once I've got that in place, all I've got to do is turn the machine on, and when we drill, we want the drill bit to do the work. I'm not going to apply tons of force to try to punch all the way through this piece of wood. I'm going to take it easy, nice and slow. I'm going to go about halfway. This is just a piece of MDF. So I'm going to go about halfway, and I'm going to kind of take a break. Okay, this is a good habit to get in, and maybe lift up just in case any wood chips need to clear out. Specifically, if you're drilling metal, you don't want to go all the way through. You're going to go just a little bit at a time. Also apply some oil, but we're not drilling metal. So I don't want to overheat my drill bit. I've gone about halfway. I'm going to go all the way through, and I can tell that I've gone all the way through because I see sawdust falling onto the floor. Once I've gone all the way through, I'm going to release the turret handle back, turn off the machine. Once I've turned off the machine, I can go ahead, unclamp my piece of wood, and I can see I've got some sawdust. Instead of blowing this on the floor, I can take it, drop it into the nearest trash can, or I can place it in front of the dust collection system. So now I have a hole. Well, let's imagine I wanted to drill the same hole repeatedly, but I don't want that hole to go all the way through. That's where this system over here helps us. This is called a depth stop. So, typically, what I like to do is, first of all, I want to bring my drill bit down to the piece of wood, and this lower stop, I'm going to bring that up. This lower stop holds my drill bit in place. It's just barely touching this piece of wood. As a matter of fact, I don't need to back off. I want to bring it close to the edge so I can do this. And then I want to figure out how far down that I want to go. Okay, so how far down do I want to go? So I could take a look at this and kind of get an idea of how much further do we need to go, or I can actually take a measurement. So the way we can take this measurement is if I look at the top of this depth stop arm right here, there are increments just like on a ruler. If I just take that number, whatever the measurement is, and I add however my depth is supposed to be. So let's say this is a 3/4 inch MDF. If I want to drill a 1/4 inch deep hole, because I have this stopped right here, all I have to do is add a 1/4 of an inch to this measurement. So right now, it's sitting currently at 7/8. So this means I want to add a 1/4 inch to that, and so in depth. So that means I need to move this to 1 1/8. So what I'm going to do is take this upper stop and I'm going to bring it down to 1 1/8. And so we can see that I have just this amount right here, the gap between this black body part and this silver stop. That is going to be the distance that my drill bit is going to go down. Once I have the distance set from the stop to the black arm here, I can go ahead and release my lower stop, okay? And what's going to happen, if I move this clamp out of the way, you can see this prevents me from going any further than this stop. And this stop, it's got a button, we can press it, it's a quick release to bring it down quickly, or you can turn it to get some fine adjustment. So, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drill 2 holes just to demonstrate how this works. I've clamped it down, turn the machine on, drill my first hole. You can see I can't go any further. All right, turn the machine off, unclamp it, and I can drill a second hole exactly at the same depth. Doing it again. There we go. Turn it off. When it comes to a stop, unclamp it. I'm going to go ahead, get rid of my sawdust, and it's real tough for you guys to see, but 2 of these holes are exactly at the same depth. Now, when I leave this machine, it really is frustrating when people leave this depth stop in place. So what I want to do, raise this depth stop all the way up. That way we can move freely. Then I'm going to take my chuck key, insert it into the chuck, and I'm going to turn clockwise. And sometimes these are pretty tight. I'm going to remove the drill bit, remove the chuck key, put the chuck key back, take the drill bit, put it back where it belongs, and then the very last step is I need to clean up my area. Best bet, get everything on the floor, grab a broom, sweep it up, take it to the dust collector, you're good to go. And then if it's the end of the day or the end of the class period, I like to go ahead and cut the power. That way, we're not going to burn out those lights, because again, they don't last forever. So, that's how to use a drill press. Remember, whenever you guys use any machine, make sure you plan, make sure you think through the process before you start. Thanks. I'll see you guys later.